She was a music teacher, a mother, a woman who believed every voice was an instrument, even her own. But one day, that instrument began to fail her. At first, it was just a tremble, a word swallowed, a note she couldn't hold. Then came the diagnosis, not of the lungs, not of the brain, but of the one thing she feared losing most, her voice. Doctors told her it would fade, little by little, until the silence swallowed her whole. But Claire didn't wait for silence. She opened the piano bench, sat her daughter down, and began to teach her the songs, the ones she'd no longer be able to sing herself. Each night she whispered melodies into her daughter's ear until the whisper disappeared, and her daughter sang them back. This is not a story about loss. It's a story about echo, about how love outlives language, and how one mother made her voice eternal through the child who carried it forward. What was the first song they learned together, and how did it come full circle on a stage years later when only one of them could sing? Her name was Claire Martin. She taught music at the elementary school 3 blocks from home, the kind with worn carpets and pianos that hadn't been tuned in years. She didn't mind. To her, music was never about perfection. It was about presence. Claire believed that everyone had a song. Some just needed help finding it. She helped children find theirs year after year, until one day she began to lose her own. It started small. She was singing along to a lullaby in Lily's room, and the last note cracked, not dramatically, just wrong. Then came the morning she tried to call her husband from upstairs, and her voice came out thin like paper sliding off a desk. She blamed it on the weather, on fatigue, on teaching too many rounds of do, re, mi. But deep down, she knew something wasn't right. The ENT found nothing. The vocal coach said it might be stress. But when she began slurring words at dinner, when Lily looked up from her plate and asked, "Mommy, why are your words melting?" they went to a neurologist. The tests were long, needles, scans, silences stretched across appointments, until finally a doctor with tired eyes and a clipboard said the words out loud, "Bulbar onset ALS." Claire blinked. Her husband asked, "What does that mean?" The doctor explained, "It's a rare form of amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. Instead of weakening her hands or legs first, it would take her speech, her swallowing, eventually her breath." Claire nodded, as if she were being handed sheet music in a different language, one she'd have to learn in silence. She didn't cry, not then. She just went home, opened the piano bench, pulled out the flash drive she used for choir rehearsals, and labeled a new folder for Lily. Her husband watched from the hallway. "I don't understand," he said. "What do we do now?" Claire looked at their daughter playing on the living room floor. "We teach her the song," she said, "before I can't sing it anymore." What do you say to a 5-year-old when you're running out of words and time? Lily was 5 years old, all curls, crayons, and questions. She didn't understand phrases like neurodegenerative disease or progressive muscle weakness, but she understood bedtime stories, and lately her mom couldn't finish them. She understood lullabies, and lately her mom sang them softer, slower, like the notes were slipping through cracks no one else could see. So Claire did what she knew best. She turned to music, not as a distraction, but as a new language, a way to stay close while her own voice slowly drifted away. She pulled Lily onto the piano bench beside her, her small hands resting on ivory keys too big for her fingers. "C, E, G," Claire whispered. That's a chord. It holds everything together, like a hug, but with sound. Lily giggled. Can hugs be loud? Claire smiled. Sometimes they're the loudest thing in the world. They began with simple tunes. Twinkle, twinkle, you are my sunshine, the melody of memory. Claire didn't just teach Lily the notes, she taught her why they mattered. This one, she'd say, makes us feel safe. That one? That's the one we use when words run out. She taught her how to hum when her throat felt heavy, how to press a single key and feel the room change, how to listen for meaning, even when the meaning isn't spoken. Some days Claire could still sing. Other days her voice wobbled halfway through. But Lily never judged. She simply picked up where her mother left off. It became their ritual, not a lesson, a lifeline, because in that shared space, between silence and song, they were learning more than music. They were learning how to stay connected, even when the voice that held them together began to disappear. And in the background, quietly, Claire began recording, one lullaby at a time, a library of love just in case. What happens when the lullabies are no longer enough and the silence finally arrives? Summer arrived with warm air, long shadows, and slower mornings. But in Claire's body, everything moved faster, too fast. By July, she could no longer form full sentences. By August, even I love you came out in syllables that only Lily could understand. The doctors said the disease was progressing. Claire nodded politely. She already knew. She felt it every time she tried to speak and only breath escaped. But she still had one more song to finish. At night, after Lily went to bed, Claire would sit at the piano with trembling fingers, her voice no more than a whisper, recording lullabies into a cheap USB microphone. She labeled each file carefully, for Lily when she's sad, for Lily when she misses me, for Lily because I love you. Some of the songs she could barely sing. The notes fell flat. The breath ran out, but she recorded them anyway, because love doesn't wait for perfection. One night Lily caught her. Claire was hunched over the piano, exhausted, voice barely audible. "Mommy," Lily said from the hallway, rubbing her eyes. "Are you okay?" Claire turned slowly, her voice cracked as she tried to answer. Nothing came out, so she held out her arms and Lily climbed onto her lap. They sat at the piano, quiet, the moonlight catching the edge of the keys. Then Lily, little Lily, just 5 years old, placed her tiny fingers on middle C and began to sing. "You are my sunshine, my only sunshine." Claire closed her eyes. Tears traced the corners of her smile. That was the first time she heard her daughter sing a song that she couldn't. Not as a student, but as her echo. It wasn't perfect. She sang off key. She forgot some words. But none of that mattered. In that moment, the song wasn't about pitch. It was about presence. Claire realized then she hadn't lost her voice. She had passed it on. And as Lily leaned her head against her mother's chest, Claire mouthed the final word she would ever say out loud: sunshine. What happens when a child is asked to carry a legacy before she even understands it? Claire's world grew quieter with each passing week. She could no longer speak, could no longer swallow, but the house still echoed with music because Lily had taken the songs and made them hers. At 6, she sang at the school's winter concert, too short to reach the microphone, but loud enough to fill the room. At 7, she hummed through her mother's doctor visits. At 8, she began composing her own lullabies, some in English, some in the private language she and Claire had invented back when words became too fragile. She sang in waiting rooms, in hospital halls, in the car when her father cried and didn't want to be seen. And everywhere she sang, people listened, not because her voice was perfect, but because it carried someone else's heartbeat. Claire sat in the front row of every performance, wrapped in a shawl, unable to speak, but glowing with the kind of pride that doesn't need sound. At home, Lily still climbed onto the same piano bench. Her feet dangled less now, her hands stretched farther across the keys, but she always started the same way. C, E, G. She said it like a prayer, because that first chord, that was still their home base, the shape of a hug, turned into music. One spring afternoon, Lily asked to sing at the school assembly. Her dad hesitated. "Are you sure?" he asked. "It's okay if it's too hard." Lily nodded. "It's not too hard," she said. "It's my turn." She wore a yellow dress that day, her mother's favorite color, and as she stepped on stage, the room went silent. Claire sat near the front, her wheelchair angled just so she could see her daughter clearly. Lily took a breath, and without accompaniment, without hesitation, she sang, "You are my sunshine, my only sunshine." Her voice trembled, but she kept going. "You make me happy when skies are gray." Parents wiped tears. Teachers reached for tissues. Even the principal looked away, pretending to read his notes. But Claire, she just closed her eyes and listened, because in every word Lily sang, her voice was there, not recorded, not echoed, alive. That was the moment everyone in the room understood. Claire hadn't disappeared. She had simply changed forms. What did others see in Lily's voice, and how did they describe what Claire left behind? After that performance, something shifted. Teachers stopped Lily in the hallway, not just to praise her voice, but to tell her what they had felt. Parents who had never spoken to Claire approached with teary eyes. They hadn't known what she was going through, but somehow they heard it that day. Claire never asked to be seen, but through Lily she became unforgettable. First voice, Ms. Alvarez, Lily's choir director. "I've worked with hundreds of students, but Lily? She sings like someone's listening, even when no one's in the room. It's like she's always singing for someone." Second voice, Mr. Jennings, the school janitor who often saw Claire after hours. Claire used to stay late in the music room, just playing. Some nights I'd hear her humming, even after she'd stopped talking. Now when Lily sings, it sounds like those same songs, just braver. Third voice, Lily, now 10, speaking at a school event. "My mom used to say that even if a voice disappears, the love behind it doesn't. I don't sing because I'm brave. I sing because she can't anymore. They say sound is a wave, and once it's made, it never really dies. It just keeps traveling until someone's heart catches it." Most people think of disability as something you can see, a wheelchair, a white cane, a visible struggle that signals this person is carrying more than you know. But some disabilities move in silence. They take not the legs, but the voice, not the body, but the language we use to say, "I'm still here." Claire never wanted pity. She never wore her diagnosis like a badge. She didn't speak of ALS as something to conquer. She simply kept showing up, to the piano, to the classroom, to her daughter's side. Even as her speech vanished, she found a way to be loud, in the only way that still belonged to her, through melody, through presence, through Lily. Because her love didn't disappear, it changed key. And Lily, bright-eyed, brave-hearted Lily, became the echo, the living chord, the carried song, the proof that invisible pain can still become visible love. Every note Lily sings is a thread tied back to a mother who refused to let silence win, who taught her child that even in quiet, we can still speak. And sometimes the most powerful voices aren't the ones you hear directly, but the ones that teach others how to carry the sound forward. What do you do when your voice begins to fade? Some people fall silent, others fight to be heard. But Claire, she passed her voice on, not through fame, not through a final speech, but through the quiet lessons of bedtime songs and the sacred space of a piano bench shared with her daughter. She didn't try to outsing the silence, she taught someone else to sing through it. And in doing so, she gave the world something it didn't expect. Not just a girl with a beautiful voice, but a living reminder that love isn't measured in volume, it's measured in echo. If you've ever feared being forgotten, if you've ever wondered whether the people you love will carry a piece of you forward, this story is for you. Because even when our voices change, our impact doesn't have to fade. Sometimes all it takes is one song, taught in time, sung in trust, and heard even years later. If this story touched you, we invite you to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment below, a name, a memory, a melody you still carry. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Able in every way. Because here, we believe that every story matters, even the ones told, one fading note at a time.